Hello students, so today we are going to discuss the last section of this particular chapter where we will be discussing uh, the last few things that are left here. The first of all being fertilization, and then after that the post-fertilization process. So we were discussing about this chapter, that is reproduction, right? So now this reproduction are of two different types. Let us recap once again. That is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. We have discussed about this asexual reproduction, and right now we are discussing about the details of basic concepts regarding the sexual reproduction. Now as you remember that the sexual reproduction process are contained three steps. One is pre-fertilization event, then fertilization, then the post-fertilization event. So we have already discussed about all these things, and along with the pre-fertilization event in the last few lectures. If you haven't gone through those lectures, I'll recommend you to go through those lectures, understand them, and then come to this one, because each of these things, as I have said earlier also, are continuations. Okay, so if you cannot understand the thing what happened before or what we have discussed before, it will be kind of difficult for all of you to understand what is going on right now. So first of all, what is fertilization? So the fusion of the gametes is the most important event of the sexual reproduction process, and this process is called fertilization. Remember, I have said that in case of sexual reproduction, two different gametes are formed. What are the two different gametes? The male produces the male gamete, the female produces the female gamete, right? Now the fusion of these gametes, remember the gametes are what? They are haploid in nature. That means they contain only one set of chromosome. They contain only one set of chromosome. Let us suppose this is the male gamete, this is the female gamete. Now they will fuse with each other to form a cell, to form a complete cell which contains a set of chromosome, right? So this particular thing is called what? It is called fertilization. This particular event is called what? It is called fertilization. So what is fertilization? It is the fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete to form a single complete cell is called what? Fertilization. Now another term of this fertilization is what? It is syngamy. We call this fertilization with another name. What is the name? The name is syngamy. Clear? Now next thing is what we have in some organisms. In some organisms, like in case of rotifers, in case of honeybees, the female can undergo the development of a new organism without fertilization. Try to understand what I said, that during the sexual reproduction process, the male gamete, let us suppose this is the male gamete and this is the female gamete, must fuse with each other, to form a new organism. To form what? To form a new organism. But sometimes the female gamete, sometimes this female gamete itself alone, sometimes this female gamete itself alone can develop a new organism. It can itself develop a new organism. So in case of certain organisms like rotifers, like honeybees, the female gamete can undergo development to form a new organism without even fertilization, and this process is called what? This process is called parthenogenesis. So parthenogenesis is a condition where the male gamete and female gamete doesn't fuse with each other. The female gamete itself develops a new organism. I guess you have eaten something called grapes, right? Now nowadays the grapes that we get, it doesn't contain any seed inside it. Grape is what? It is a fruit, but inside that fruit we don't see any kind of seed. Sometimes we see bananas, those bananas don't contain any kind of seed. How they are formed? They are formed by the process of this parthenogenesis. Clear? So parthenogenesis is a process in which the female gamete and the male gamete doesn't fuse with each other. The female gamete itself develops a new organism without the process of fertilization. Fine. Now this process of fertilization can be of two different types. Listen to it very carefully, very conceptual thing, very easy thing. So this process of fertilization can be of two different types. Either it can be external fertilization, or it can be what? Or it can be internal fertilization. Now what is the meaning of the term external fertilization? External fertilization means if the process of fusion of the two gametes is occurring outside the mother's body, then that is called external fertilization. Try to understand. Remember what is fertilization? The male gamete, the female gamete fuses with each other to form a single developed organism. From that single cell, not organism, from a single developed cell, from that single developed cell, it will develop a new organism. Now if this fusion process occurs outside the parent's body, that is called external fertilization, and if it occurs inside the parent's body, it is called what? It is called internal fertilization. Clear? Now this external fertilization occurs in case of very simple lower organism, whereas this internal fertilization occurs in case of very complex higher organism. So let us revise once again. What is fertilization? The fusion of the male gamete and female gamete is called fertilization. This process has another name, that is called syngamy. Sometimes this process can occur without the fusion of the two gametes. The female gamete can itself develop a new organism, that is called parthenogenesis, and this fertilization can be of two different types. Either it can be external or it can be internal. External means it occurs outside the parent's body. Internal means it is occurring inside the parent's body. Example, external fertilization occurs in case of frog. Okay, external fertilization occurs in simple lower organisms, whereas internal fertilization occurs in higher complex organisms. Example, in case of humans, in case of dogs, in case of other mammals. In all these cases, fertilization occurs where it occurs inside the parent's body. Clear? Next comes what? Next comes the last event of this particular whole sexual reproduction process, that is the post-fertilization event. So the events that is occurring in case of the sexual reproduction after the process of formation of zygote is called what? It is called post-fertilization event. Now you might be thinking, sir, what is this zygote? Very simple. Try to understand. Just now what we have studied about fertilization. The male gamete, the female gamete fuses with each other to form a single complete cell. That single complete cell is called a zygote. Clear? So whatever events are occurring inside the organism during this sexual reproduction process after the formation of the zygote are called what? They are called post-fertilization events. Clear? In this post-fertilization event, there are two main processes. One is zygote formation, the second one is embryogenesis. So what is this zygote? I have mentioned earlier also that what is this zygote, but we'll understand a bit more in detail here in this particular section. Zygote formation, the fusion of the two gametes which develops into a diploid cell, that is called zygote. Try to understand. Very simple thing, very conceptual thing. Remember, I have said that the gametes which are formed, they are haploid in nature. This is the notation of haploid. When we write only N, that is the representation of haploid cells. Okay, haploid cells means those cells which contain only one set of chromosome. Clear? Now these haploid cells fuses with each other, that means merges with each other to form a complete cell which is diploid in nature. So N plus N, how much it will become? Obviously 2N. So this 2N cell that is being formed, this 2N cell is called what? It is called zygote. It is called what? It is called zygote. Clear? So the fusion of the two gametes develops into a diploid cell, and the name of the diploid cell is what? It is zygote. Now, as I have mentioned earlier also, that the process of fertilization can be of two different types. Either it can be external fertilization or it can be internal fertilization. External fertilization means what? The fertilization that occurs outside the parent's body. The fertilization that occurs outside the parent's body. Internal fertilization means the fertilization which occurs inside the parent's body. Right? So if the fertilization is occurring outside the parent's body in case of external fertilization, then obviously the zygote will be also formed outside the parent's body. Try to understand. A very simple thing. Male gamete, female gamete present outside the body, they are fusing to form a single cell. So each and every process is occurring outside the body. That means the zygote is also developed outside the body. Where it is developed? It is developed inside the water. Like in case of frogs. In case of frogs, the gametes are released inside the water, and in that ambient environment, the gametes fuses with each other and it develops the zygote. Right? They develop the zygote outside the parent's body, where medium is water. And if it is internal fertilization, then obviously the zygote is going to develop where? It is going to develop inside the mother's body. Clear? This zygote is the starting point of every living organism on the world. Listen to it very carefully. This zygote is what? It is the beginning or the starting point of every single organism on this living world. All the living organisms that you can see in your surrounding environment, all of them starts their life with this single celled zygote. Clear? Now you might be thinking, sir, okay, fine, you said that it is the starting form of all life, but if I am discussing about bacteria, a bacteria is itself a single cell, then it divides asexually and then it produces two new bacteria. So in that case, how can you say that it is the starting form of all living organism? There is no formation of zygote. Yes, you are certainly correct that there is no formation of zygote. But remember what process you are talking about. You are talking about asexual reproduction. Here I am discussing about what? Here I am discussing about Sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction means obviously there will be formation of gametes, and after the formation of the gametes will fuse, and after the fusion of the gametes the zygote will be formed, and that zygote is the starting point of all living organisms on this living world. Clear? This zygote is the linking between two generations. Your parents, you started your life with a single cell, that is zygote, right? And from that zygote multicellular human being is produced. Or let us suppose I am a human being, so me as a human being, I am developed from a single cell, that is zygote, and that is the link between my parents and me. That is the common point, or that is the linking point between me and my parents. And what is it? It is the zygote. Clear? So next up what we'll discuss about the next process, that is this embryogenesis. So this is the last event of sexual reproduction, and that is what? It is the embryogenesis. Now this single cell zygote will undergo cell division and cell differentiation to develop an embryo. Now a question might arise in your mind that, sir, I know about cell division, that mitosis, meiosis. But what is this cell differentiation? Question is correct. Zygote undergoes what? Cell division. That means it divides. From one cell it becomes 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and then 8 to 16 and so on. Right? So the number increases. But try to think about it. Every single human being, not just you and me, every single human being was a single cell at the beginning of their life. But right at the moment of their birth, they have nervous system, they have circulatory system, they have digestive system, they have respiratory system, they have excretory system, they have reproductive system. All these systems are developed. How they are developed? That is called cell differentiation. Try to understand. Once a cell divides, this is a single cell, this is a single cell, right? Now when this cell divides into two new cells, when this single cell divides into two new cells, so this is a single cell zygote, and this single cell zygote divided into two new cells. Now this cell is defined for forming the body parts. This cell is defined for the forming of nervous system, that is, let us take an example, brain. So when a cell is dividing, that is called cell division. But when we are assigning some particular function to a cell, or when a cell is defined for a particular function, that means after the division of the cell, if the cell is now defined to produce the heart, then that is called cell differentiation. That means this cell is different and this cell is different from each other. They are not similar. They are not similar. Once the cell divides in the initial stages of the life, when the zygote starts dividing, when it reaches to a stage of 3200 cells, at that point of time, each and every cell of that particular embryo undergoes the development of different organs of our body. That process is called what? It is called cell differentiation. So this zygote undergoes cell division to increase the number of cells, and then undergoes cell differentiation by assigning different work to individual cells to develop different organs, and that is how embryo is produced. Clear? Now this particular development of a zygote, of a single cell zygote into an embryo, can either occur outside the body or it can occur inside the body. Try to understand. Egg. Chicken lays eggs, right? So once it lays eggs, what is the egg? Egg is nothing but it is the zygote. Okay, it is the zygote which is protected inside a hard calcium containing covering. That single cell now divides and divides and divides, and then it differentiates and it produces a small chick out of it, right? That means the development is occurring where? It is occurring outside the body. Such kind of development is called what? Such kind of development is called oviparous development, in which the organism lays eggs. Turtle, crocodiles, they all lays eggs. That means the development of zygote into an embryo occurs outside the body. That is what? It is called oviparous development. And if it is occurring inside the organism's body, like in case of humans, the baby is developed inside the mother's womb, that is called viviparous development. And after the viviparous development, the organism gives birth to the young ones. Clear? At this process of embryogenesis, when this development is occurring, when this development of a single cell is occurring into a multicellular organism, at that point of time, in case of plants, the flowers, all the floral forms are being withered. Withered means they fall off. They fall off. The main function of the flower inside the plants, we'll discuss about the sexual reproduction in plants after this one only in the next lecture. But in case of plants, the main reproductive part is what? The main reproductive part is flower. When the reproduction is complete, now the fruit will develop, and at that point of time, all the other floral parts wither off. That means they just shed off. Clear? So in this whole chapter, what we have discussed what is reproduction, we have discussed what are the different types of reproduction, asexual, sexual reproduction, what is this asexual reproduction, what are the different types of asexual reproduction, then we have studied about the sexual reproduction process, what are the different steps of this sexual reproduction, that is the pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization event, what happens in pre-fertilization, what happens in fertilization, what happens in post-fertilization event, each and everything we have discussed with the basic concepts. So in the next particular sections, in the next particular lectures, what you will hear, you will see the reproduction in plants, and this reproduction in plants will be developed. We will develop the concept of this reproduction in plants, sexual reproduction in plants, as well as the third chapter is sexual reproduction in humans. We will develop all these concepts of next two chapters on the basics of what we have studied till now. Clear? So thank you all of you. We have completed a chapter. Again, if you have any doubts, you can write your doubts in the comment below. I will clear it off in the next video, and I'll arrange a question answer session where I will take the questions and I will try to answer those questions. Clear? So thank you all of you. Listen to these lectures, read your book, whatever book you have, and I guess that thing will help you out for clearing the concepts and moving up with a better marks in your exams. So thank you all of you.